What happens when a TV host known for steamrolling guests finally meets someone who refuses to play by his script? Millions tuned in expecting a routine political takedown, but instead they witnessed a moment that flipped the entire power dynamic live on air. In just a single sentence, a young congresswoman didn't just respond. She redefined what political composure looks like. Viewers were stunned. The studio fell silent and social media erupted. So how did a calm, measured reply turn a confident media powerhouse into a speechless spectator? And why are people still talking about it today? Let's rewind to the moment everything changed. Picture a televised showdown that no producer could have fully prepared for. On one side, a confident primetime commentator, polished, battle-tested, and famous for turning interviews into ambushes. A man used to controlling the narrative, setting the tone, and sending guests scrambling for composure. Across from him, a rising congresswoman with a razor-sharp legal mind and a reputation for staying calm in chaos. Young, strategic, and underestimated far more often than she should be. She didn't come for airtime. She came prepared. To the audience, it looked like another predictable political segment. A host ready to remind a newcomer who held the microphone. But behind the calm smiles and media-trained poise, a different energy was brewing. One built on confidence, discipline, and something far more dangerous than outrage. Unshakable composure. And when the cameras rolled, it became immediately clear this wouldn't be just another interview. It would be a collision of ego and precision. Old-school media power versus a new kind of political presence. And the moment one unexpected voice proved that silence, timing, and truth can hit harder than shouting ever could. Long before this moment took over timelines and talk shows, both of these figures had built very different kinds of power. The host didn't rise to primetime by accident. He built a reputation on sharp wit, confident monologues, and interviews where guests rarely left unscathed. Viewers tuned in expecting fireworks, and he delivered. To many, he was a truth seeker who never backed down. To others, he was a master of interruption and intimidation, using volume and certainty to win the moment before facts ever entered the room. Either way, one thing was undeniable. He ruled his studio like a courtroom where he was judge, prosecutor, and audience all at once. The congresswoman's path was a mirror image polished not by media lights but by pressure. Raised in a working-class community, she fought her way into elite institutions, sharpened her legal instincts, and built a platform rooted in discipline, data, and quiet resolve. She didn't earn attention through headlines, she earned it through precision, through outthinking opponents who underestimated her, through that rare mix of calm voice and uncompromising clarity. And if the political arena tried to rattle her, good luck. She'd already survived louder rooms and tougher battles before ever setting foot in Congress. By the time they faced each other, both had something to prove, just not the same thing. The host wanted another on-air victory, another moment of dominance to clip, replay, and celebrate. The congresswoman? She wanted something deeper. Not applause, not a viral quip, but accountability and a chance to show what happens when confidence is backed by preparation instead of ego. It was a collision waiting to happen, and neither of them saw just how quickly control could shift when ego meets unshakable calm. The moment the camera started rolling, you could feel the energy shift, almost like the air tightened a little. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was subtle, the kind of quiet tension that happens when two people walk in thinking they're the one in control. The host leaned back in his chair with practiced confidence, already owning the room before the first question left his mouth. He'd done this 1,000 times. Guests came in nervous, stumbled through their talking points, and left wishing they'd rehearsed more. But this time something felt different. The congresswoman's posture didn't change. Her breathing didn't shift, and there wasn't even a hint of anxious energy. It was the kind of calm that doesn't announce itself, it just exists. And that alone was enough to throw him off, even if he didn't show it. Producers whispered off camera. Assistants hovered near the stage. Everyone expected a routine segment, a seasoned host ready to score another decisive moment, and a rising politician just happy to be invited. But quietly underneath the smiles and small talk, there was strategy, timing, patience. One side preparing to dominate as usual, and the other waiting, studying, letting the moment build. Then came the first question, pointed, polished, and crafted to push her off balance. A challenge disguised as curiosity, a trap wrapped in polite wording. It was the kind of opener that usually set the tone immediately. But today, It didn't land the way he expected, because she wasn't here to play defense. And in the seconds after that first question, something shifted, the kind of shift only people paying close attention could catch. The audience didn't know it yet, and neither did the host. But the balance of power had already started to lean in a very different direction. What happened next would turn a simple interview into a moment no one saw coming, and one the host would wish he'd prepared for a little differently. The first exchange started exactly the way the host wanted: sharp tone, confident delivery, a question designed less to seek clarity and more to set a trap. He leaned forward with that familiar half-smirk, the kind meant to say, "I already know how this is going to go." His voice carried that practiced rhythm audiences recognized instantly. Challenge first, interruption ready, dominance assumed. But what he didn't expect was her response. She didn't rush. She didn't flinch. She didn't even blink at the loaded question that would have rattled most politicians on live TV. Instead, she waited a beat just long enough to make silence feel like power, not vulnerability. Then she answered calmly, directly, and without a single defensive note. No dodging, no nervous laughter, just facts, delivered like she had all the time in the world. The host tried to cut in the move that usually threw guests off, but she didn't raise her voice, didn't push back, didn't let frustration even graze her tone. Instead, she simply kept speaking, steady and unbothered, like someone who knew interruptions only work on the unprepared. Suddenly, the interruption wasn't dominance, it was desperation masked as confidence. A ripple of surprise moved through the control room. Camera operators exchanged glances. Crew members leaned forward, unsure whether they had just imagined the shift. This wasn't the usual energy. The balance wasn't breaking her. It was bending toward her. And while viewers at home couldn't yet put a finger on why this moment felt different, one thing was clear. The host wasn't running the conversation anymore. He just hadn't realized it yet, because as poised as she looked, she hadn't even played her strongest card. That moment, the one that would leave him frozen and the internet buzzing, was still ahead. And when it landed, nothing about this interview would ever be remembered as routine. And then it happened, the moment everything flipped. Up until now, the host still believed he could pull the conversation back under his control. A raised eyebrow here, a sharper question there. The familiar tactic of cutting off mid-sentence to force the narrative into his lane. But right as he attempted another interruption, right as he leaned in, ready to pounce, she hit him with a line no one expected. She paused, looked straight at him, and said softly, "If you're done performing, I'd be happy to answer the question." 12 words. Calm. Precise. Delivered without heat, sarcasm, or ego, just pure composure that sliced deeper than any raised voice ever could. And in an instant, the room changed. You could see it on his face, that split second where confidence slipped into confusion. He froze. Not because she insulted him, but because she named what he was doing with surgical accuracy. For the first time, he became the one suddenly on display. Exposed not by anger, but by truth spoken plainly. Silence filled the studio, heavy, uncomfortable, electric. The kind of silence that doesn't just pause a conversation, it redefines it. Even viewers at home felt it. Social feeds wouldn't catch up for hours, but anyone watching live knew they'd just seen a shift bigger than a soundbite. The host blinked, trying to recover, but the damage was done. His authority didn't dissolve with drama. It slipped away quietly, replaced by the uneasy realization that he wasn't steering the moment anymore. She didn't overpower him. She revealed him, and the interview, once an arena of control, suddenly belonged to her. But the reaction that came next, that's when things really got interesting. Because the internet saw it, clipped it, and turned that single line into a cultural moment no one could ignore. The silence didn't last long, but its impact did. Within seconds, producers behind the glass scrambled. Camera angles shifted. Someone whispered, "Did she just say that?" And the host, usually so quick to fire back, sat there trying to reboot the confidence that had just been quietly dismantled in front of millions. He forced a smile, tried to toss out a recovery line, but it didn't land. Not because his words were wrong, but because the room had already seen the shift. Once power changes hands, everyone knows it, even if no one says it aloud. The Congresswoman kept her composure, answering the original question with calm clarity, making it painfully obvious she had come prepared for substance, not theatrics. Meanwhile, the host adjusted his posture, cleared his throat, and attempted to reassert control. But every interruption felt weaker now. Every smirk seemed forced. It was like trying to restart a performance the audience no longer believed in. And then came the internet. Clips hit social media before the segment even ended. 12 seconds of quiet precision replayed thousands of times in minutes. Comment sections filled with shock, laughter, disbelief. Did she just check him on his own show? She didn't raise her voice and still bodied him. This is how you handle manufactured outrage. On political forums, creators broke down the moment frame by frame. On TikTok, edits highlighted that single sentence with dramatic zooms and bass drops. Even viewers who didn't follow politics couldn't resist clicking, because this wasn't just debate. It was disruption, a real-time shift in who held the power in the room. And as for the host, instead of trending for another fiery takedown, he became the subject of think pieces and reaction videos with titles like, "When Control Slips Live on Air." The interview he'll never forget. For someone built on dominance, losing it quietly, publicly, undeniably was a blow social media was never going to let fade quickly. And behind the polite televised smile he forced once cameras cut, there was no hiding the reality. He didn't get interrupted. He got out-centered, and the world saw it. But what this moment sparked next? It didn't just change the way people saw him. It changed the conversation around who really holds power in media. What happened in that studio wasn't just a viral moment, it tapped into something bigger. Something that had been simmering quietly in politics and media for years. People were tired of conversations that sounded like battles instead of discussions. They were tired of watching voices get drowned out by volume rather than challenged by thought. And suddenly here was proof that strength didn't have to shout to be heard. This moment didn't land because someone won on TV, it landed because it exposed a shift in how audiences connect to power. The old formula, talk louder, interrupt first, dominate the segment, suddenly looked outdated. Viewers weren't cheering aggression anymore. They were gravitating toward clarity, patience, and the ability to apply pressure without raising a tone. It felt different, fresh, and maybe even overdue. Commentators scrambled to make sense of it. Some insisted the host had an off day. Others claimed the congresswoman got lucky. But ordinary people watching saw something else entirely. A new kind of confidence. A refusal to be rattled by theatrics. A reminder that media power isn't a one-way current anymore, that credibility isn't handed out by networks. It's earned in real time and judged by millions who will rewind, replay, and see through anything that feels staged. For a long time, the loudest voice in the room automatically felt like the strongest. But this moment challenged that assumption. It hinted at a shift where poise beats pressure, where preparation beats performance, and where truth spoken calmly can shake an institution more than any explosive headline ever could. And perhaps the most telling response came from those who usually avoid these political face-offs entirely. People who said, "I don't even watch interviews like this, but that clip? I had to replay it." Because it wasn't just politics, it was human psychology. Ego meeting composure and losing. In a media world built on noise, she proved silence and precision could cut deeper than shouting ever will. And once an audience sees that, the old rules don't feel so powerful anymore. In the end, this wasn't just about a single interview or a single line that froze a primetime studio. It was about what happens when the usual script breaks, when confidence meets preparation, when noise meets clarity, and when someone refuses to shrink just because a spotlight is pointed at them. For years, audiences were conditioned to believe the person with the microphone held the power. But moments like this rewrite that idea in real time. They show that control isn't guaranteed, that status isn't a shield, and that poise when paired with truth can feel more disruptive than any on-air confrontation ever could. The host expected another routine victory. Instead, the world watched a quiet checkmate, one delivered without raising a voice, without trading insults, without playing into the theatrics that used to define these kinds of moments. And that's what made it unforgettable. Not a shouting match, but a reset, a reminder that real strength doesn't need to perform to be seen. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing someone can do on live television isn't dominate the room, it's refuse to let someone else define it. And if this moment taught anything, it's this. In a world used to volume, composure might just be the new power move.